Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Valero. I am Associate Professor of Information Technology in Kansas State University. I'm going to be the session chair for the short papers number 2. So we have Huinin Lee. She is going to present the first 2 papers. So let's start with the first one, continuous prediction of user dropout in a mobile mental health intervention program, an exploratory machine learning approach.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the nice introduction. I'm Huining. I'm from North Carolina State University. Today, I'm very happy to be here to present our work, continuous prediction of user dropout in a mobile mental health program. And this work is collaborated with SUNY Buffalo Nursing School. So in the United States, around 20% of patients with mental illness issues are from marginalized community, but as for the psychologists, 4% are from the marginalized community. According to a report, people from marginalized community are free to talk to someone else that does not look like them. So when they encounter the mental health issues, they will not think about seeking help from the professionals. And the COVID-19 pandemic further increased this health disparity. As a result, 70% people from marginalized community with mental health issues have not received the treatment during the pandemic. So what can we do for the marginalized community? We work with UB Nursing School to discuss how to help them solve this issue. So our basic idea is to design a smartphone app to deliver the mental health intervention content to users. And in the meanwhile, we develop a user dropout prediction model in the backend. So in this case, the psychologists can always keep an eye on users' states, and then they can provide the in-person healthcare support if in need. So our idea is started by the PCORI. Starting from November 2020, we designed a smartphone app to deliver the mental health intervention content to the users. We optimize and test our app several rounds. And finally, in August 2021, we launched our app in the Apple Store. We start to recruit the patients from the May 2021, and we continue doing this till now. After the subjects are enrolled in our study, we first hold an online training session to teach them how to use our app. We always provide technical support and clinical support if they are in need. And in 2023, we developed an intervention outcome prediction model. And in 2024, we developed a user dropout prediction model. So our paper will talk about the user dropout prediction model. Till now, we have successfully helped 84 families from marginalized community, and we help them to reduce the stress levels. So we mainly recruit the subjects from some specific zip codes in the Western New York, where the marginalized community are mainly located. We work with UB Nursing School to design the inclusion and exclusion criteria. We include the subjects who have the worry symptoms but do not have the active suicide intent. So in our study, 49 subjects are enrolled, and among them, 70% are Black or African American. In the beginning of our study, we first hold an online training session to teach the users how to use our app. Our study has 9 weeks, consisting of an introduction week, and also we have 8 weeks task set session. And in each week, we set different kinds of tasks. The users need to watch different kinds of mindfulness videos and practice. They need to record their happy events and unhappy events for self-reflection. And every day when the users open our app, they need to self-assess the emotion state by answering some questions. And till now, we can see the total active days of using our app is around 2,000 days. And in addition to that, our clinical collaborators also perform the mental health evaluation on users at week 0, week 5, and week 9. Here, let's see how the users interact with our app. Our study lasts for 2 months. We mainly divide the user interaction with our app into 3 categories, which are self-reflection, emotion state self-assessment, and mindfulness practice. Self-reflection is a freestyle. Users can input any content they want. And the emotion state has 5 levels, ranging from good to bad. And the mindfulness practice is to watch different kinds of mindfulness videos, and users have different kinds of completion degrees. So we can see this user interaction can happen at any time of a day and can also happen at any day of a week. This mobile interaction data is unstructured, heterogeneous, and dynamic. So here we may want to ask a question: how can we continuously predict user dropout from this heterogeneous and dynamic mobile interaction data? So to realize the user dropout prediction, our first step is to organize the mobile interaction data into the feature matrix. The rows are from week 0 to week n, and the columns are 48 features that can summarize the mindfulness practice, self-reflection, emotion state self-assessment, and the weekly engagement. And the mindfulness practice is to watch different kinds of mindfulness videos, so we compute the completeness, pause duration, and the watching time pattern in a week. And as for the self-reflection, users can input any content they want. So we count the top 20 frequently used words in their self-reflection. And in addition to that, we also calculate the polarity score and the subjective score in their self-reflection. As for the emotion state self-assessment, we have mentioned that they will answer different kinds of questions, and this question ranging from good to bad. So based on their scores, we calculate the mean, STD, and change rate of all their response. To summarize overall weekly engagement, we compute the frequency, continuity of active days, and the overall task completion degree. Okay, after we have generated the week series future matrix, we input it to a classification model for dropout prediction. Since we want to do the continuous dropout prediction, the week length can change over time, so we choose the LSTM. LSTM is very good for learning the time series patterns and relationships between the features. And here, let's look into some evaluation results. First, let's take a close look at the study outcome. Our clinical experts performed the mental health evaluation on users before the study, at the midpoint of the study, and the post-study. So we can see by the midpoint of the study, 65% users feel better. And by the end of the study, around 75% users feel better. And the percentage of getting worse is also reduced due to the psychologists in the loop compared with the midpoint of the study. We can see our study can really help the people from marginalized community to reduce the stress level. Here is the dropout prediction performance. We can see our system can achieve over 98% accuracy, and we compare the performance between different AI models. We can see all of them can achieve very good performance. Among them, the bio-LSTM can achieve the lowest false alarm rate, which is 15%. Okay, this is all for this work. I will introduce the second work.
Yep.
Okay, in this work, we talked about the low-channel EEG to speech conversion approach for helping the people with communication disorders. So in the world, more than 10% of children and adolescents are affected by the disabilities like communication disorders. Among them, more than 90% are from the low and middle income countries. We can see the communication disorders have a very large impact on the next generation in the underserved countries and regions. To help people with the communication disorders, some works have developed the EEG-based speech recognition system. They can reconstruct the speech from users' EEG signals. To reconstruct high-quality speech, current EEG-to-speech systems mainly rely on more than 64 channels of EEG signals. There are some limitations of their works. First, such kinds of EEG devices are very expensive and their maintenance cost is also very high. Second, it is very time-consuming to set up the EEG devices, so it is not practical to use these EEG devices in the real-world scenarios. And third, the system can generate a large computation overhead to process large amounts of EEG channels, which makes it difficult to deploy the system on the mobile and edge devices. In addition, we also found that the current EEG-to-speech conversion systems mainly focus on isolated word recognition, such as left, right, up, and down. Although they are useful for some basic control, but this limits the potential for supporting human communication, because we know that our human communication requires continuous speech sequence recognition. And the current systems mainly have lower performance on continuous speech recognition compared to the isolated words recognition. So, in light of this situation, we propose to build an end-to-end low-channel EEG-to-speech conversion framework that can address these limitations. First, instead of requiring more than 64 channel EEG signals, we want to operate our system with much fewer EEG channels. And second, rather than focus on the isolated word recognition, we aim to enable continuous speech sequences recognition. And third, we want to extend our system to non-English languages to support a more diverse population. Our system mainly consists of two phases, which are training phase and inference phase. In the training phase, as shown in the solid line, we collect both image and spoken EEG signals along with the corresponding voice recordings. The under-complete ICA module reduces the input EEG channel from 6 to 4 while preserving the neural patterns. The generator learns to reconstruct the male spectrograms from sparse EEG signals, while the discriminator provides adversary training to improve the quality. A pre-trained vocoder converts the male spectrograms to the audio, and a pre-trained automatic speech recognition system transforms the audios to the tests. During the inference, as shown in the dotted line, we only need 4-channel EEG signals input to generate both the reconstructed voice and the transcribed text by the trained generator. Now let's look into some technical details. In the beginning, we use the under-complete independent component analysis module for channel reduction and noise removal while preserving neural patterns. The basic idea is to design an interconnected network to learn which combinations of original channels can best preserve the neural patterns of the image speech. This is not a simple channel selection. It is an intelligent transformation that can maintain the signal quality while reducing the computation overhead. Next, we use a generator discriminator architecture for learning the optimal speech reconstruction. We design 3 loss functions. The first loss function is reconstruction loss. It measures the Mel spectrogram quality between generated ones and the ground truth. The second loss function is adversary training loss, where the discriminator learns to distinguish real ones from the generated spectrograms, pushing the generator to create more realistic outputs. The third loss function is character level speech recognition accuracy loss, which directly optimizes for the intelligible speech output. We balance between these three loss functions and solve a multi-objective optimization problem, which ensures both quality and usability of the generated speech in the real world. We evaluate our system using a public EEG dataset. There are 15 human subjects. Among them, 8 are male and 7 are female. The mean age is 25 years old. They record 6-channel EEG signals with a sampling rate over 1,000 Hertz, while the user is speaking or imaged speaking. We group 4 words into one sample. In total, we have around 4,000 image speech samples and 1,000 spoken image samples. In the evaluation part, we use the root mean square error and the character error rate to quantify the system performance. The root mean square error can measure the reconstruction accuracy between generated and ground truth Mel spectrograms. It can assess the signal quality. The character error rate evaluates the final speech intelligibility by measuring the character level errors in transcripted text. It can assess the practical communication effectiveness. And these two metrics together can ensure that we are optimizing for both technical accuracy and real-world usability. Here is the overall performance. We compare our system performance with the baseline. The baseline is based on a 64-channel EEG system for isolated word recognition. As for the root mean square error, our performance is very close to the baseline. And as for the character error rate, our performance is even 4% less than the baseline. So we can see our system can achieve at least comparable or even better performance on continuous speech recognition with 10 times fewer channels compared to the baseline. So to summarize, we have 3 key achievements. We improve the character error rate from 68% to 64%. We significantly reduce the channel number from 64 channels to 4 channels. Moreover, we can enable continuous speech recognition that can support human communication in the real world. In our paper, lower cost plus better performance can enable wider deployment of the EEG to speech conversion system. We make the brain-computer interface technology more accessible in resource-controlled environments, which can benefit over 200 million individuals with communication disorders in underserved regions and countries. Thank you, everyone. This is all for our work.
Thank you for your presentation. Our third paper is exploring fine-tuned audio LLM on heart murmur feature.
One second. Plugged in?
Yes.
So just present it.
Oh, it's super slow.
Just wait 1 second. Oh, it's flipped. Okay, you have to go into display settings.
Okay.
Oh, okay. There we go. Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. My name is Adrian Floria, and I'll be presenting our short paper entitled Exploring Fine-Tuned Audio LLM on Heart Murmur Features. So, as you may or may not know, cardiac diseases are a leading cause of death worldwide. On average, an estimated one life is lost every 30 seconds in the United States. And as you can see on the map on the right, these instances are more prevalent in countries or regions where access to medical care and devices is less frequent. And so we know that onset of these cardiac diseases can occur at birth or even more so in adults due to a variety of risk factors, predominantly age and other aligned things such as like heart, blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. So how are these diseases diagnosed? Well, through a well-known process called cardiac auscultation. And this is the bread and butter of any time you go to the doctor's office, they take a stethoscope, place it on your chest a few different places, on your back as well. And what this does is allow them to listen to your heart and assess various valve and chamber healths. And so doing this often and doing this frequent is very critical to detect a disease early and possibly even prevent it. So in more particular, when a physician is using a stethoscope, they listen for something called a heart murmur. And this is an acoustic signal that is usually indicative of an unhealthy valve structure in any of the 4 chambers of your heart, kind of shown on the image on the left. So with the example waveform I have here, between the systolic and diastolic kind of lub-dub of the heart sounds, there's usually some high-pitched whooshing sound that can have various different features. And so those specific features are listed up here. To describe a heart murmur, physicians use shape, timing, quality, pitch, and grading. And these are all related to the acoustics and the audible murmur that is present in that heart sound. And in order to accurately annotate these features, doctors spend many hours listening to recorded heart sounds or even real patients gaining exposure to this signal and getting a better sense of the differences between the labels kind of listed here. That being said, some studies have shown that at a minimum, some doctors only have an accuracy of about 80 to 85% in predicting some of these labels. However, these 5 features really help assist doctors in identifying the type of diagnosis a patient might have, the severity of such disease, and this could include different kind of stenosis, regurgitation, prolapse, and lastly, of course, some sort of plan for treatment. So takeaway from this slide is that assessing these acoustic features is key for a better diagnosis. So going back to my previous slides, it is anticipated that remote heart sound diagnosis will become more prevalent in clinical practices in the coming years, especially with the rise of telehealth and more people needing to be screened much faster and more rapidly. So many works have really investigated these 3 main blocks shown here that essentially classify recorded heart sounds, which are called phonocardiograms. So groundworks have taken a look at segmentation, which separates one heartbeat from another, feature extraction, which takes the individual heartbeat or entire heartbeat signal itself and takes some sort of spectral or temporal features or some sort of combination of both, and then feeds that into a classification model, which usually does some sort of prediction of if the heartbeat is healthy or if there's a murmur detected at some place in that heart, in those features. So overall, a lot of the groundwork has been done for discriminative machine learning models for this classification task. Other works more recently have included end-to-end classification, where the classification model is encoding these features within the model. And then most recently, in the past year or 2, transfer learning has been the most successful in predicting the murmur class. And this is where researchers have seen that fine-tuning general purpose audio models for speech, sound, and other noises performs the best. So secondly, we can see that just about 2 or 3 studies do this thing called multi-label classification. So going back to the 5 features I mentioned earlier, they have designed just a few models that can classify some of these labels, and this is kind of the core of this project. So one of the ideas is that we want to treat murmur classifications as an assistive tool that doctors can interact with. Therefore, we want to use and leverage LLMs because they have remarkable achievements in reasoning, and even furthermore, we would like to utilize multimodal audio LLMs that understand speech, speech and noise, and even mixed audio signals. And so we want to incorporate one of these medical reasoning audio LLMs to acoustic heart sounds. Secondly, we aim to make this an assistive tool capable of annotating and performing reasoning on the entire heartbeat signal. So that means we want to open the set of tasks to include diastolic features of the heartbeat, which have not been previously studied and have less occurrence in public data sets. Lastly, we want to build an assistive tool that is capable of generalizing to a wide variety of recording hardware, patient demographics, background noise, etc. Therefore, in our system design and experiments, we investigate zero-shot prompting for PCGs from unseen contexts and demographics and data sets. So what do? Well, we take an existing Q12 audio LLM. This is a multimodal LLM reasoning model that has one part, which is a audio encoding model in its architecture. This is based on the whisper speech recognition model, if you're familiar, and then a LLM called QN. So in our trading objective, we maximize the predicted text token conditioned on the audio representation kind of shown here. We use full low rank approximation for this fine tuning. And the way that we set up these questions is we take the Systor Digiscope phonocardiogram data set, which has over 900 different patients from a pretty comprehensive age range. And we take all the labels that they have. So they have expert annotated labels for the shape, pitch, quality, timing, and grading for both the systolic and diastolic phases of the heartbeat. And we set up a multiple choice kind of framework for the model to reason with, listen to the audio and encode the audio, and then come up with a solution there. Secondly, we explore a state space model segmentation model as a front end because we want to explore how well our system can generalize to other data sets and other types of heartbeats. We use this state space model because it's been shown to best model long and short-term dependencies. And so our data set contains recordings that are from 30 seconds to a couple of minutes. So we use this model to encapsulate just a few different heartbeats that have the least noise present, and then use that to train and evaluate our LLM. So on to some of the results. I'm gonna start with the multi-feature classification task. So on the top, I show the systolic phase features in terms of their accuracy. And there are 2 other works that have done this before. One of them is less robust because it has 5 separate models encapsulated with it, and our model is outperforming that one. That's the GUO, the deep cardio sound. And then the other one is a fully one model that predicts all 5 labels. However, both our model with the segmentation and without the segmentation is able to outperform classification for 4 out of the 5 labels. And I can go into, probably for the sake of time, you can read the paper for the grading feature. And then for the diastolic phase features, since these are long-tailed features that are not present in the data set as much, no other models or works have really gone into classify these. So we also report very similar prediction results for these as the systolic phase ones. Our second task is the murmur detection task. So essentially just taking in an entire phonocardiogram and predicting if there's a murmur present or not. And we add an additional step in our analysis where we take the 5 features that we predict for timing, shape, pitch, quality, and grading, and we have some sort of agreement head. 1 minute? Okay. We have some sort of agreement logic head that basically analyzes the responses for all 5 of these heart murmur features and then comes up with an overall murmur feature. And so this helps us get a little bit more of a robust prediction. And in our case, we use a logic of about 4 out of 5 labels for either the systolic or diastolic phase to agree before we confirm our result as healthy or unhealthy. And so we report our weighted accuracy as a lot of the other models that work with this data set do. I highlight that this work with the annotation adjustment performs a little bit under 10% better than the previous state of the art. And this work without it is slightly competitive, but slightly under the current state of the art. But we are really happy to report this improvement in prediction accuracy. And lastly, for our core of generalization, we explore 2 data sets that have various different hardware types, demographics, et cetera. And we do a 0-shot classification task where, and in this case, all these heart sounds are labeled just as abnormal and normal. So slightly different than our data set, but we prompt our models to predict these. And while our work suggests that the segmentation front end needs a little bit more work to predict these labels better, we see that the system itself without it performs very well and suggests that the model itself has high versatility, or the base model has high versatility when interpreting the entire phonocardiogram, given some unseen context. So to conclude, we accomplished 3 goals in this study by creating a practical tool for annotating and classifying multiple heart sound features for physicians to use in the clinic or via telehealth settings. We first expanded the model set of tasks by predicting unexplored diastolic features. We've demonstrated our system's generalization capabilities in some 0-shot evaluations, and then showed that the proposed model outperforms state-of-the-art methods in 10 out of the 11 murmur features, and is the first one, as again I said, to successfully classify these diastolic phase features. Yeah, so thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Our 4th paper is Enhancing Respiratory Disease Diagnosis with Graph Convolutional Networks through Non-Speech Audio Synthesis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raphael. I'm here to present for Enhancing Respiratory Diseases Diagnosis with Graph Convolutional Networks through Non-Speech Audio Synthesis. I'm from UMass Law. So this will be the outline of the presentation. Start from the introduction, try to move fast because it's a bit late, and get to conclusion. Try to make it so everyone can understand the work as short as possible. So the introduction. Respiratory diseases are a major global concern, and we would all agree with that. Currently, or just a few years ago, it contributed to about 5.8 million fatalities. And these diseases include asthma, tuberculosis, pulmonary hypertension that affects over 1 billion people. And our goal in this research was to find out how can we help the clinicians to make predictions, or better still, to make their work less tedious, not to replace them. So, the problem. Respiratory diseases remain a leading cause of illness and death worldwide. And we feel like diagnosing these conditions often depends on a manual interpretation of the lung sounds by the clinicians. So we feel if we could develop a tool or make it less difficult for the clinicians to determine these diseases by using machine learning models, it will really be helpful. And what is our approach? Our approach was combining CNN and graph convolutional network with the help of an attention to support the health professionals in accurately and efficiently classifying these respiratory diseases. We felt by using machine learning model, we could detect the time patterns in these diseases to help them in their decision making. And we had a few related works to support what we were doing. Onto the left was a work that used graph neural network to also make disease classification. And on the right, they used the CNN and the same thing. So our work builds on these two foundations. And the data set used is the ICBHI data set. It's well-recognized data set. It's on Kaggle. It was used for a challenge. And after this, I will show where you can get the data set. It's been cleaned. So here I give a representation of the split of our data set from COPD, asthma, all the way to normal. Normal here represents healthy patients that do not have any respiratory diseases. So the goal here is to try to predict these respiratory diseases with the CNN and the graph convolutional network. And this is just a brief summary of how the data pre-processing is done. We first convert it into a male spectrogram, which shows here. The first one is a healthy individual, and to the right is someone with COPD. You could see the difference already from the raw wavelength waveform. Sorry, you could see the healthy person looks different, and the raw waveform of the COPD patient also look different. This is now fed into the CNN where the features are extracted. So our proposed model. Our model combines a CNN for deep feature extraction with a GCN to model the relationship between the sound segment. After this is done, we attach an attention layer to integrate, to capture time-based variation. The attention layer is added here to capture the time-based variation, improving the model's ability to distinguish subtle differences between respiratory conditions. The model supports, we did a three-way. We did a binary classification, a three-way classification, and a six-way classification tags. In the binary, we just simply did healthy and non-healthy. Unhealthy was all of the 6 diseases. We just put all of them. We feel you are unhealthy if you have all this. And the three-way classification, we picked the top 3 respiratory diseases and trying to classify this. And the 6-way, we picked the 6-way diseases respiratory diseases that are out there and try to classify that. So next. This is a summary of how our model works. But first, why CNN? CNN extracts the complex time frequency patterns from respiratory sound spectrogram, enabling detection of subtle acoustic difference between healthy and disease states. CNN layers produce informative features for distinguish among multiple respiratory conditions. And then someone will also ask, why are you using GCN? GCN here is a graph. And the nodes here in the graph represent the sound segments. And one might ask, so how are these graphs connected? These graphs are connected. We're connected using the cosine similarity between these sounds. So if there's if there's a similar sound, then we have a connection. So this forms the edge of the graph. So what happens first? We get the sound, then the pre-processing, we take 5 seconds from each sound, which is converted into a male spectrogram, fed into the CNN. when it's in the CNN, we extract the features, which is flattened, and then we're trying to get a lightweight model. A further extraction of the features is done, which is fed into a graph. The graph construction, that's just what I explained before. The nodes are the segments of the sounds, and the edges are the cosine similarities. After the graph is constructed, we add an attention layer to the graph to be able to capture the subtle differences in the various respiratory diseases. Then finally, we have the classification. So by combining the CNN, the GCN, and the attention, the model delivers accurate, robust, multi-class respiratory disease classification across diverse clinical data. And results and performance. Here, what we are trying to show is the precision, recall, and the F1. Also, we mentioned the various models we are comparing it with. Some are the baseline models, some are the state of the art. Some of the authors did not do any, they didn't try to predict some of the diseases, because it's hard to predict when you are doing a 6-way classification. But when it comes to a 2-way classification, or diseases that have their data, a lot of data, it's easy. So that is why in some places it's dash for that, because the authors the authors did not provide results for that. Their model couldn't detect that. And in all the diseases, our model outperformed the existing models. And in all the results, we show the results with attention and without attention to our model. We wanted to be fair. We wanted to show what happens if we attach the attention to the model, and without attention, how our model performed. What we did find out that the attention helped our model more when we did a 6-way classification. But when it comes to the 2-way classification and the 3-way classification, attention or no attention, we still outperform the baseline models. And this is a detailed classification report of our model. And just to help you understand, the first one is healthy and unhealthy. Like I mentioned, unhealthy is all the respiratory diseases out there we're trying to classify. And healthy is just the healthy individuals that were in the data set. And we reported with attention and without attention to just help researchers understand more of what that adds to the model. So first is the 2-way classification. To the right-hand side is a 3-way classification. One might ask, why did you pick this specific 3-way classification? It's because these are the common and predominant respiratory diseases. And then we have the 6-way classification there as well. And to conclude, we developed a lightweight CNN-GCN model with attention to classify respiratory diseases from audio recordings. It's also important to mention that we did not use the transcript. We used only the sounds from the clinicians. Then let me just go to future work. Future work, we would like to expand our data set, get more variations into the model, because the data set used right now was from Greece and Portugal. The researchers are from Greece and Portugal. So we think adding more variation to the data set would help us understand the model, the strengths, and what we can do and places to look at. And thank you. If you like the data set, the source to the data set is listed there, and other things we feel can help in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Our next paper is Diet Watch Towards Low Effort Fine Grained Dietary Monitoring by Smartwatch in Open World Scenarios.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuqing Xie, and I'm from Yeshiva University. And this is America to present our work here. Diet watch towards low efforts, fine-grained dietary monitoring via smartwatch in open world scenarios. This is a collaborative work with Zheng Hou from IUPUI and Feng Li from Purdue University. Right, first of all, why dietary monitoring is important. So according to the reports of WHO, the poor dietary habits are key risk factors for chronic disease, and thus it becomes essential to monitor and understand individuals' dietary habits, including the dietary time and food category selections. And this kind of information can help uncover underlying dietary issues and also provide neutralized nutrition guidance. So traditional dietary behavior analysis approaches often relies on self-reporting tools, and which are subject to subjective bias and memory errors. And in addition, wearable sensor-based methods are often bunky, costly, and sometimes difficult for general users to operate. So as the wide spread of smartwatch, it becomes an ideal platform for common users to use for dietary monitoring. So, but we find that existing smartwatch-based methods usually provide only partial tracking of dietary information and can only perform optimally in controlled environments. So our goal is to develop a low-effort dietary monitoring system that provides fine-grained dietary information in open-world scenarios using smartwatch. So there were several key challenges in open-world scenarios that we aim to address in this project. First of all, dynamic interference, such as the background noise and the motion-induced noise, are unpredictable and can significantly affect the data qualities collected from the smartwatch. And also, the consistent features of like the eating gestures must be extracted, as the motion range and the speed of the same eating gestures can vary. And in addition, it is important to expect users to provide samples for every possible potential, non-eating gestures, because there were so many different kind of categories. In addition, a more fine-grained and comprehensive dietary monitoring system is required, which can help us monitor the eating time and also the food categories. So we propose a system called Diet Watch to mitigate this kind of challenges in open world scenarios. So first of all, initial and acoustic signals are collected from the smartwatch, and we propose dynamic interference mitigation methods to mitigate the noises from both domains. And the denoised initial data were used for the eating gesture identifications, and the recognized eating gestures was then used for estimating the eating time. Right? In the multimodal feature fusion, both the features from both acoustic and inertial domains were extracted based on attention mechanisms, and furthermore, the fused features can be used for fine-grained food type recognition. Well, in the dynamic interference mitigation module, for initial signal processing, we applied by GRU to capture structured, periodic, and temporal patterns of eating gestures. And we also applied LMS to filter out environment-induced the vibrations. And for acoustic signal processing, we apply an encoder to transform the waveforms into high-dimensional features, and then apply attention to emphasize acoustic features associated with food textures. After that, multiple TNC branches will operate in parallel and jointly together to generate the masks to enhance the eating sounds. So recognize the eating gestures in open world scenarios is not easy work because there were the unrestricted eating gestures, and also there were so many different kind of non-eating gestures, right? So we propose a contrastive learning-based method to help us recognize eating gestures. First of all, we construct training pairs where the variations of eating gestures are treated as positive pairs, and where pairs comprising eating and gestures and non-eating gestures are designated as negative pairs. And then we use a GRU-based feature extractor to capture the motion dynamics. After that, we perform contrastive feature alignments by minimizing the causing distance for positive pairs and to promote the intra-class consistency, will enlarge the margin for negative pairs. So in the attention-based multimodal feature fusion, the denoised initial and acoustic signals are processed and by the GRU-based encoders. And then the extracted features are concatenated together and fused through attention mechanisms. So the fused representations are then used for fine-grained food category recognition. Well, let me talk about the experimental setup. So we developed the prototypes on commercial devices, and we use GoPro to capture the ground truth for our experiments. So in the experiments, 18 participants, 7 eating activities, 16 non-eating activities, and 40 food types were involved in the experiments, and we evaluated the performance in 4 real-life scenarios. Meanwhile, we use accuracy and the TIOU to help us evaluate the performance in terms of the eating time recognition and the food type classification. Well, for the performance, we evaluate the eating time derivations across 4 real-world scenarios, and we found that our systems mitigate the interference and could improve the performance by over 5% and reaching an average performance of around 80%. And our systems also achieves 86% accuracy in food classification across 40 food types, which demonstrate the very strong performance in open world scenarios. Let me conclude our work. So we propose a low-effort smartwatch-based systems for fine-grained dietary monitoring. And we propose effective method to solve the challenges appears in open world scenarios. And we evaluate our systems across 22 activities and 40 food types, achieving decent performance in eating time detection and food classifications, which demonstrates the feasibilities of our systems in real-life open world scenarios. Right, so that's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Our next paper is Beyond the Diameter, 3D surface area estimation for more accurate polyp sizing.
Showing here. So you want me to go to the next slide? Okay, thank you. Hello everyone. I'm Almira from UMass Lowell. Today the work I'm going to present is titled Beyond the Diameter 3D Surface Area Estimation for More Accurate Polyp Sizing. The motivation of our work is
colorectal cancer is a significant public health concern worldwide because of its morbidity and the mortality. The best way to stop it is to find and remove small growths in the bowel called polyps before they turn to cancer. So among the parameters, the guiding clinical decisions, the polyp size is really important. So doctors decide how often a patient needs checkups and what treatment to use by looking at the size of the polyp. So most of the time, endoscopists resort to approximating polyp size using the largest diameter. But this approach is inherently limited because it collapses three-dimensional lesions into a single linear dimensions. And this often misrepresents their like volumetric extent. So some polyps can be flattened and some polyps can be protruding. So for example, if they are two polyps and they have similar diameter, but one that is protruding may have a larger surface area or volumes comparing to the flattened one. The diameter alone may miss how big the whole growth really is. So measuring the polyp's surface area, the total amount of tissue it covers, gives a fuller picture of its true size and may match better with how fast it could grow or turn into cancers. So our contributions can be summarized into these 3 points. So to our knowledge, it is the first end-to-end pipeline that estimates metric surface area from a single molecular endoscopy frame. So it combines state-of-the-art metric depth estimation and the robust polyp segmentation and the Poisson surface reconstruction. And also it introduces canonical camera space transforms that enables zero-shot generalization across different various intrinsics. So here is our whole pipeline graph. So first, the input image is passed through a metric depth estimation model to produce a depth map in the canonical camera space, and then the depths are rescaled to recover the original metric depths. And this depth map is then combined with camera intrinsic parameters to back project every pixel into the three-dimensional point cloud. Next, we estimate the normals, and then we reconstruct the surface area. It results into a continuous 3D surface representation of the scene. And in parallel, we also use the segmentation model to segment the polyps area, and the segmentation output is projected into the reconstructed 3D surface, and then we just extract the polyps area from the whole scene and then calculate the surface area. Depth estimation, it roughly has two types. One is relative depth, another one is a metric depth. Our pipeline directly estimates a metric depth. The problem with the metric depth is if the camera intrinsic has different value, it becomes a main factor that can affect the metric depth value quality. So to deal with this, we introduce a new component, which is a kinetical transformation element. So for our metric depth estimations, the backbone is depth sensing V2. Its encoder is visual transformer Dino V2, and its decoder is a refinement. For the kinetical transformation element, it scales the depths by taking the ratio of the kinetical space effective focal length to the image's effective focal length. So it can bring every frame into the same common focal length space. And during the training, we convert the kinetical depths by multiplying the scale factor. And during the inference time, we recover the metric depths by multiplying the kinetical space depths by the inverse of the scaling factor. So for the training, we roughly use 23,000 synthetic column frames, which includes C3VD and the SIM column data. For the segmentation and the 3D surface process, for the segmentation, we use our previously developed segmentation model, which is YOLO 11 based, to segment the polyp area. And after we getting the dense depth map, we convert each depth into the 3D under the camera coordinate following the pinhole camera model. So here, UV are the pixel coordinates, and the K is camera intrinsic, which includes camera effective focal length and principal points. And then we estimate a normal vector for each 3D points. So for that, we use Open3D to fit a local plane around each point by analyzing its key nearest neighbors. And then we calculate the covariance matrix of the neighborhood using this equation. So in this equation, X tilde is the centroid of the neighboring points. And then the normal is the eigenvector of this covariance matrix corresponding to the smallest eigenvalue. After getting the 3D-point cloud and then calculating its normals, we reconstruct its surface area. To do that, we use Poisson reconstruction. So Poisson surface reconstruction is performed using the Open3D library. So given the points and their normals, vector field is defined in this first equation. So here the delta is a direct delta function, and we try to solve the second equation. And taking the divergence of the both sides, it yields a Poisson equation. So finally the surface area surface is extracted as a level set of the solution of the chi-x. So after we found the surface area, we use the result of the segmentation model to extract the surface polyps from the whole scene, and then just calculate the surface area of the polyp. Here is the experimental setup. So for the data set, for the training, we use C3VD. It's a colonoscopy frames acquired with a clinical Olympus. And inside a phantom silicon model of a human colon. And for this SIM column data is generated from the human CT scan. And the images and the corresponding DAPS maps are rendered in a Unity-based virtual environment. And for the zero-shot evaluation, we use UCL data. And the data set is generated using the same method as a C3 data set. And also these three data sets have different camera intrinsic values. For the training, we use 4 GPUs. For each GPU, we use 3 samples. We train 30 epochs. The encoder and decoder has different learning rate. And for the learning scheduler, we use cosine and annual methods. Here's the quantitative result. For the quantitative result, we use a commonly used matrix for the depth estimation. For example, absolute relevant error delta 1, which is accuracy under the threshold of 1.25, and a root mean square error in the log space. So we also listed the inference time. Our method a bit worse compared to the depth and SIMV2, but in terms of other metrics, our method outperforms comparing to the other state of the methods. And here is a result of the whole pipeline. So the first row shows the ground truth scenario, starting from the original image, followed by the ground truth depth map, and then the reconstructed 3D mesh obtained from the ground truth depths and the ground truth normals. And the second row demonstrates the predicted scenario. It begins with the segmented image, followed by the predicted depth map. So using this predicted depths and estimated surface normals, we construct the 3D mesh and subsequently isolate the polyp surface to calculate surface area. So for the conclusion, so we introduced as the first molecular pipeline for surface area aware polyp sizing. We integrated segmentation, kinetical space metric depths, and Poisson reconstruction into a single framework. And we also used the kinetical space to generalize depths, metric depth estimation. And for the future work, we plan to do real-time inference and the clinical validation on real clinical data. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. And our last paper for today is ADHD SIM tracker. predicting ADHD symptoms using Apple Health Kit data.
Thank you. Cool. Hi everyone, I am Shweta Ware and I am joined today by my wonderful student Alison Vaughn, who is also a co-author on our paper titled ADHD Sim Tracker, Predicting ADHD Symptoms Using Apple HealthKit Data. This is a collaborative work between computer science and Department of Psychology, and we are pretty excited to present our findings. So to introduce and present the motivation, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is an impairing disorder, which is basically a neurodevelopmental disorder that impacts day-to-day lives of individuals. And in case of college students, it particularly impacts their academic lives. So core ADHD symptoms are mainly categorized into three categories, particularly inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. There is also a fourth category that is listed here, sluggish cognitive tempo, which is not considered a core ADHD symptom yet. So current diagnosis methods are heavily relying on self-reports and are often clinician administered, which suffers from recall bias. So I am very sure you have heard several presentations today that present the drawbacks of existing approach, and pretty much ours aligned with those works in terms of the drawbacks. So there is an urgent need for an accurate, detailed tool for ADHD symptom tracking that requires minimal or no human intervention. And not to forget this, the current diagnosis methods are pretty, they involve high costs and are not cheap methods. They are pretty cost bearing. So moving on, mental health and digital phenotyping. We all have been hearing these wonderful presentations since this morning, and we know that ubiquitous adoption of smartphones and their rich embedded sensors have made mental health tracking pretty effective, and they often present low-cost, lightweight diagnosis tools. Existing studies have explored the feasibility of using smartphone sensing data for mental health tracking. I should add some more papers that I listened to today in these citations. So HealthKit. HealthKit is Apple's health data platform that has been increasingly used for probing into mental health and well-being research. By default, iPhones come with this app that tracks our day-to-day physical activities and records it. So there is a passive continuous sensing tools that are highly effective for monitoring mental health. So this all adds up and brings us to our research question on how can we implement a smartphone-based approach to accurately monitor ADHD symptoms in real time, enabling effective treatment decisions. So we propose a novel approach, ADHD Sim Tracker. Sorry, this is just moving in the presentation mode, that uses Apple's HealthKit data to predict ADHD symptoms. So the next slide will give an overview of what it is, and Alison will cover some of the parts here. So we have mainly three core components. One is a participation recruitment block, where we have our participants, all college-age students, and our clinical psychologist, who is my wonderful collaborator, and our wonderful research team. Then we have a data collection block, where we are passively collecting data, smartphone sensing data from participants, and we have also collected several self-reports that Alison will be discussing shortly. This collected data will be moving on to data pre-processing stage, where we map HealthKit data to user weekly self-reports, and we handle missing data. So we then pass on to the feature extraction phase. She'll explain. And then these features will be passed to classification block, where we will be building a family of machine learning models mainly using decision tree, random forest, decision tree, XGBoost, and SVM to predict core ADHD symptoms. So we envision to use these pre-trained models in the deployment stage for ADHD diagnosis and symptom monitoring, which is
which is making the individual self-tracking possible and will also aid clinician for effective and informed treatment decisions. What are the advantages of ADHD Sim Tracker? It monitors clinical symptomatology of ADHD at a much finer level than binary status of whether somebody has ADHD or not. It could be immensely useful at both the individual and clinical levels, and deployment issues could include handling the careful designing to ensure user privacy and responsible usage of data. Alison, you can take from here.
Thank you, Dr. Ware, for that overview. So here is an overview on the pilot study conducted at the University of Richmond, titled Studying ADHD Using Smartphone Sensing and Ecological Momentary Assessment Data, or, sorry, I'm gonna change this. Maybe not. Anyways, sorry, known as SESIMA. Over a period of 10 weeks, researchers recruited 97 college-age participants from UR and VCU, and there were 4 types of data that were collected. First is the baseline, which covers the past mental health history of the participants. Then we have the weekly surveys, which covers the anxiety, the stress, and the ADHD of our participants. Then we have the EMA and the smartphone sensing data that runs in the background of Android and iOS. So we primarily focused on the health kit data collected from 38 participants, 16 having ADHD and 22 without ADHD on the iOS platform. Then we have the feature engineering, and there are 2 categories for this. The first is the category-based temporal features, and this includes 5 sensors, so flights, steps, walking distance in miles, and active and base energies across the morning, the afternoon, the evening, and the night. Then in the second category, we have the descriptive statistics-based features, which include our average and standard deviation values for those 5 sensors again. In parallel, these participants took a weekly questionnaire where they answered to 27 questions relating to ADHD symptoms, which we narrowed down to 18. And these were measured from 1 to 4, with 1 meaning no symptom and 4 being the most severe. And then we converted these values to binary values, so 0, no symptom, and 1 being symptom present. Here we have the ADHD symptom sample distribution for both the ADHD participant group and the non-ADHD participant group. And as you can see in the blue bars, that means the symptom was present, and in the yellow bars, it indicates that the symptom was absent. And on the x-axis, these were the 18 questions that I was talking about, and we excluded the symptoms marked in red due to significantly unbalanced class distribution. And for the ADHD population, sample size for score value less than 1 is higher.
Thank you. Moving on to our classification methodology, the main goal is to predict the presence or absence of individual ADHD symptoms. We use 3 classification algorithms: decision tree classifier, XGBoost, and SVM. And we repeated, for each of these classifiers, we repeated our experiments in 3 settings based on the user groups, including all participants, ADHD participants, and non-ADHD participants. Throughout, we used leave one user out cross-validation combined with hyperparameter grid search and feature selection. So in the interest of space, we are presenting prediction results for XGBoost for ADHD and non-ADHD participants. As we can see, for ADHD participants, the F1 score ranges from 0.63 to 0.72. And for non-ADHD, trouble organizing is predicted with an F1 score of 0.62, and loud and noisy symptom is predicted with an F1 score of 0.60. Overall, all 3 categories of symptoms are predicted fairly accurately, and if you read our paper, you'll see that for all the classifiers, most of the symptoms are predicted fairly accurately. And overall, we notice better results for the ADHD population and similar results across multiple settings. Here is a feature importance plot for the on-the-go symptom prediction. So for this on-the-go symptom prediction, with an F1 score of 0.72, top 23 features were selected. So the higher the score is, the better the feature is. And you can see most of them are related to steps and flights and their categorical and descriptive features. So to conclude, ADHD Sim Tracker investigated the feasibility of using the Apple Health Kit data for ADHD symptom status prediction. We constructed a family of machine learning models to predict ADHD symptoms across various user groups. Most symptoms related to inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity could be predicted fairly accurately. And our findings indicate that the overall physical activity levels rise when ADHD symptoms are absent. We are in fact currently working on an analysis where we are finding a relation between ADHD symptoms and stress and anxiety and the activity levels. So the observation is consistent. That is a work in progress. So future work includes integrating health data from both Android and iOS platforms and utilize health data collected from smartwatches. With that, we conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much. These conclude our presentations for today. And I hope you have a good evening and see you tomorrow. Thank you.